Okay, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us here today. Before I get started with the substance of my remarks, I'm proud to introduce you to several people who've inspired why we are here today and lent substantial assistance to the historic suit that we filed in the United States District Court for the District of Columbia. First, the Honorable Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton, who will speak after me. Next will be the Honorable Charles Allen, Ward 6 Council member that covers this Capitol Hill area and other areas of the District of Columbia. He's also the chair of the D.C. City Council Judiciary Committee. Joanne Lidgate is the executive director of States United Democracy Center, a bipartisan organization that works to ensure access to voting for all and works against violence and extremism. Of course, last but not least is Jonathan Greenblatt. He's the CEO of the Anti-Defamation League, the leading organization in the fight against hate that works tirelessly to advocate for justice and fair treatment for all. I also want to thank our co-counsel in the case who provided excellent pro bono assistance, and those are lawyers from two firms, Deckert LLP and Paul Weiss, Rifkin, Wharton, and Garrison, two of the world's greatest law firms who have so generously and expertly assisted us in this matter. Ladies and gentlemen, behind us, of course, is the United States Capitol, the recognized symbol of democratic government. This building has stood since 1800, and it is where Franklin Delano Roosevelt, our country's longest-serving elected president's words are inscribed. And here's what they say: "We must remember that any oppression, any injustice, any hatred is a wedge designed to attack our civilization." Allow me now to take us back to another tragic day that befell our country, September 11, 2001. On this day, the United States weathered a terrorist attack covertly orchestrated from beyond our country's borders, one that also aimed to take down our capital if it wasn't for the heroes on Flight 93. Our country responded by declaring war on terrorism in what became our country's longest armed conflict. Nearly a year ago, on January 6, 2021, our country faced a very different but familiar enemy, inflamed by a sitting president and other elected officials. Fellow Americans, dressed in military fatigues and wearing red, white, and blue, were armed with weapons and materials that shockingly permitted them to construct a wooden gallows used to execute someone by hanging on the grounds of our hallowed Capitol. Like the planes that attacked the Pentagon and the World Trade Center and crashed in the fields of Shanksville, Pennsylvania, the images of that shameful and contemptible day can never be erased. It was like 9/11, a planned terrorist attack, but this time our own citizens were hell-bent on destroying the freedoms and ideals on which our country was founded and continues to aspire to achieve. January 6 was, to say the least, a brazen, violent, and deadly attack that traumatized this city, this community, and our country. And importantly, no one bore the brunt of this gutless attack more than the courageous law enforcement officers, including the men and women of the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department, who went into the fire and violence with one objective in mind: remove the violent mob and restore our country's fragile democracy. While some desperately want to rewrite history and sweep the events of January 6 under the rug, the District of Columbia and its residents have chosen to speak truth through this filing, through this complaint, through this case. It is for these reasons that the independent Office of Attorney General for the District of Columbia is filing the first civil lawsuit by a state or municipal government to hold accountable the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, and more than 30 of their leaders and members for conspiring to terrorize the District of Columbia, for unlawfully interfering with our country's peaceful transition of power, and for assaulting our men and women in blue who valiantly defended the Capitol, the District, and our freedoms. Specifically, we're bringing this lawsuit pursuant to local and federal laws, including the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871, a Reconstruction-era federal law designed to protect our country against violent conspiracies, protect our citizens against violent conspiracies, like the attack that took place on January 6. In the complaint, which has been filed and is public, we specifically allege that these vigilantes, insurrectionists, and masters of a lawless mob conspired against the District of Columbia, its law enforcement officers, and residents by planning, promoting, and participating in the violent attack on the United States Capitol. We further allege the named defendants caused substantial and provable damage to the District of Columbia, and in particular to our courageous law enforcement officers who risked their lives, and some even died, to defend the Capitol, the District, and our country's freedoms. As the Independent Attorney General, I have the responsibility to enforce our laws and hold these violent defendants accountable because they cause actual physical and financial harm to our city, its employees, and our residents. So, we've brought this suit for 4 reasons. First, accountability. Holding wrongdoers accountable is an American value, and it's at the core of my legal responsibilities. The defendants, as you know, were not tourists, nor were they acting patriotically. They were vigilantes, members of a mob, insurrectionists who sought to crush our country's freedoms. Second, deterrence. Our country is a country of laws. We certainly can and do disagree on a plethora of issues, both big and small. However, in the United States of America and in the District of Columbia, we resolve our disagreements in a civil, non-violent manner. Those who don't play by these rules must be held responsible to deter future violent and undemocratic conduct. Restitution and recompense is the third reason why we're bringing this suit today. Because in our country, when an individual or entity suffers physical, mental, and financial injury caused by the illegal act of others, the victims are entitled to restitution and recompense. We all agree that the tragedy of pedestrians hit by a vehicle by walking on a crosswalk are deserving of restitution and recompense at the very least. So too are law enforcement officers who were injured in the course of stopping a violent mob hell-bent on taking away our freedoms. Again, restitution and recompense, those are American values. And in this case, the defendant's unlawful actions caused the district to deploy unprecedented resources to repel and defeat an attack on our country's capital. During the height of the attack, approximately 850 members of the Metropolitan Police Department were at the Capitol and the immediate area surrounding it. Scores of officers required emergency medical treatment and continue to receive physical and mental health treatment today as a result of physical injuries and trauma that in many cases will last a lifetime. These costs, including the unavailability of officers who are not able to immediately return to their jobs and protecting D.C. residents, are substantial. And we will, through this lawsuit, seek to impose severe financial penalties on the organizations and individuals responsible. Finally, we filed this suit to seek justice for the brave men and women of the Metropolitan Police Department. Police officers sign up to protect our residents. This is true. But they don't sign up for war on our country. They don't sign up to being attacked by an armed mob, beaten with bats, poles, and fists, dragged down stairs, kicked and stomped by thugs. My mind goes to Metropolitan Police Department Officer Michael Fanone, a veteran officer who himself voted for President Trump in 2016. Obviously, Michael Fanone defended the Capitol on January 6, and video evidence of Officer Fanone's testimony revealed that he fought valiantly against the mob. In doing so, he succumbed to the violent mob and was dragged down those Capitol steps. Officer Fanone suffered a heart attack and a concussion as he was repeatedly shot with a taser or shotgun and physically beaten. In Officer Fanone's own words, "Some guys started getting a hold of my gun and they were screaming out, 'Kill him, kill him,' with his own gun." A father of 4, Officer Fanone pleaded for his life. Fortunately, but not before ending, physically hurt and mentally traumatized, Officer Fanone survived. Ladies and gentlemen, NPD Officer Gunther Hashida and Officer Karl D. Freitag and a 3rd NPD officer, Jeffrey Smith, also put their lives on the line on January 6th, and they suffered mightily. Sadly, they took their own lives afterwards. This lawsuit seeks justice for them, their families, and the many officers who still live with the pain from January 6th. Let me thank you for gathering here today. Now let me pass the mic to Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton, who has spent her life fighting for the equality that this country aspires for. She has spent her life fighting for the freedoms and democracy that the police officers fought for on January 6th. It is my honor to introduce you again to Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton.